Hello, my name is Christy. I'm from Deltares, and I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar, Mapathon. As you all know that this time, Asia is facing flood events, and specifically Nepal, Bangladesh, and India are facing a lot of troubles due to this disastrous situation. Red Cross for this has been doing a lot of work, rescue and relief efforts and rehabilitation efforts to support these kind of situations. And we are very happy that our colleague from Red Cross is here with us. Red Cross announced a global call to help, and this time not with the money, but by helping them by mapping, and we can do that remotely. So Deltares decided we could help in this situation, and we've organized this along with the Red Cross, Kathmandu Living Labs, and Water Youth Network. I would now also like to introduce you Gaurav Thapa, who is from Kathmandu Living Labs. And Kathmandu Living Labs have been doing amazing job during the earthquake of Nepal and also during the flood events in Nepal. They're helping out a lot for the humanitarian groups with the mapping efforts. And I'd like now to hand over the floor to Gaurav.
Okay, thank you, Srishti. I'll also turn on my webcam. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this global call for people to map the 2017 flood affected areas in Nepal. My name is Gaurav Thapa and I work as a project manager here at Kathmandu Living Labs. So I just want to quickly go through how mapping has been useful during disasters in Nepal and what we have been doing so far during this disaster. So Kathmandu Living Labs, most people know us because of the work that we did during the earthquake, and during this time there was a lot of mapping work done from our office and remotely that helped with the rescue and relief efforts during the earthquake of Nepal in 2015. Most of the mapping that took place remotely was joined by a large group of people from abroad, and so almost 9,000 people within 48 hours contributed to the mapping effort, and we were able to take a lot of supplies and equipments to rural areas in Nepal because of the access routes and waterways and other road networks created by remote mappers. As you can see on my screen, this was the way that we worked together, and most of the tasks that we put up, it was put up on Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team's website, and people were able to access it, go over there, and map little targeted areas. So right now we're doing the same thing for the flood affected regions, and the Red Cross has been helping us tremendously in this regard. So there are various tasks set up. If you can see my screen, then there are various tasks set up, and they've all been, people have been actively participating in mapping these areas. So most of them are in the southern plain areas of Nepal. And you can see that like who's contributed what and how mapping changes the profile of the area and what is mapped. To actually see the actual change in before and after, I'm going to take us to our project that we've been working on called Prepare Pokhara. And this is a project that relies on OpenStreetMap data and geospatial data in order to prepare people for such disaster situations and to become more resilient. And within this project, in the last year of mapping, what we've seen is a very dramatic increase in the geospatial data that we've got and we've collected. So, for example, on the left-hand side of my screen, you can see that this is what the map used to look like, and now, because of more mapping and mapping, we have much greater and detailed map of the area. And if you zoom in further, you'll see that this detail contributes directly towards knowing details such as, where the hospitals are, where these critical infrastructures that are needed are located. This can in turn then be converted into maps like these, which can be accessed by several people, relief organizations, as well as just normal users, and they can find details about the services that they require during a disaster. But without the base layer being created through remote mapping, all of this would not really be possible. So that level of mapping is highly important for us, and it's very useful in the current scenario. Looking at flooding, for example, what we've been doing in the past has been creating vulnerability capacity assessment maps using participatory method, but then digitizing that in the form of OpenStreetMap. So we're able to create a lot of maps such as this and give to people in the villages so that they know, they have a better idea of their community, where they're supposed to evacuate, where there's road access, where there's higher ground. So this is very useful for them during the disaster. Another use of mapping that's taking place right now in Nepal, we've been in contact with a lot of our partners here. That includes the Red Cross, World Food Program, and UN Spider, and these agencies that work with geospatial data and work in the relief work and travel to these areas. So what they've been doing is they've also now started collecting map information through platforms like USAID and Quick Map that Kathmandu Living Labs have created before, and created maps, access constraints maps like these. And so this is released periodically. As soon as we get a report from somewhere, the World Food Program's team has been developing maps based on these reports, and they'll tell which roads are accessible, which roads aren't accessible, and people are able to accordingly go and help victims in certain areas. Finally, I want to show a few more statistics about how these maps have grown and the importance of these maps within our work. For example, in the OSM community itself, Nepal right now, as you can see, is ranked in number 3, and Bangladesh and India has also been increasing in terms of contributors and people who want to come and map during this time. And this is very important because we need these maps as quickly as possible, and because of the flooded areas, they recede, and sometimes the flooding intensifies periodically. It is important to maintain an updated map, and so we need contributors. One thing I'll show you really quickly here is that in terms of, this is a statistics that shows the number of daily active members. And what it clearly shows is in the graph, you can see that when the earthquake happened, so this is 25th April, there's like, soon after that, there's a huge spike in the number of remote mappers who come and join us in terms of helping and remotely mapping an environment. So that is what we hope will happen now as well. And we're hoping that that will be the same case, and large activation will lead to better geospatial data and a better understanding of where to go to help victims, and later on where to take relief materials, or also where do we need to better prepare ourselves in the future. So I would encourage most people to check out the websites, check out Hot Tasking Manager. I'm sure it'll be mentioned later as well, the OSM Tasking Manager and the tasks that we've put in place. My colleague Neela Purasaini will be creating further tasks from the reports that we're hearing about the locations where flooding is taking place. It's moved slightly from the east of Nepal towards the west. So we might be creating a task for that specific area. And the wonderful thing about far western Nepal is for us, because we've been working on a project over there for the last 1.5 years, and this is the project in the Karnali River, we've found that a lot of people have been able to not be affected as seriously as in 2008, for example, when the last big flood happened. And also it's important to know that the flooding in Nepal, though it happens every year, this year has been especially difficult, and the flooding has been at a higher intensity and at a higher level. So they're saying that the flooding rates and the damages that has occurred has been greater than in the last 12 years, the greatest amongst all those years. So it is truly a big issue and a big call for help. And if anybody of you can, help us map these areas, then we certainly greatly appreciate it. And it makes a great difference in the lives of the people within these communities who are facing these flooded areas. So, Srishti, I'm going to hand back the control back to you. I hope I have covered most of what's being said.
Thank you very much, Gaurav, for sharing the work that KLL has been doing and sharing with us the value of mapping in these kind of events. For sure, the mapping efforts that has been done by people all over the world has helped Nepal and other countries that have faced disasters, and these events like Mapathons are very impactful during these kind of emergencies. Today, when we were talking with COAST, we came to know that the situation in Bangladesh is worsening, and hence we decided that we would choose a project now in Bangladesh and not in Nepal for this week. And the focus area for Red Cross for this week is Bangladesh. So today we'll be mapping the areas in Bangladesh rather than in Nepal. But of course we can spend some time to map the places in Nepal whenever we have some free time. But today's exercise will be focused on Bangladesh. And I'm very happy to let you all know that we have participants from many places, not just in the Netherlands, but there are people from Nepal who are joining us, and from the United States, from Ghana, from Singapore, and all over the world. So we are very happy and welcome you all for joining us remotely. Now I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Koos, to share his experiences with the Mapathon and instruct us all in this exercise of Mapathon.
Okay, thank you very much, Srishta, for handing over. Okay, yeah. Well, I start with a small video. We're trying to let it play now. Yeah. And that's the work what has been done in the Netherlands in the last week, on a few days, mainly in the southern part of Nepal. We got the former speaker also talked about this area, and in the 3-4 days You see, it quickly happens. And at one day, there were 40 people at the cadastre in the Netherlands in the time of the boss working on this area. So that was really great, and we did a lot of it. But now we go on, and you see here, these are the groups connected with it. And I want to now stop with it. Yeah, okay. Here's the missing maps project, now working on for two and a half years. And in general, you can say that the houses of some 29 million people are mapped in the meantime, all over the world. 5.6 buildings are mapped. And what's also very important to know is that some 30,000 slices of pizza has been eaten. That's what we are usually doing at 6 o'clock here in the Netherlands, and I think also at other places. To prepare an area to map, you can do some map swiping. That's an app you can download on your smartphone, and then you get 6 images on your screen. You choose one, and when you see a building or a road, then you say, okay, and you click on it. But when there's nothing to see, you just swipe it away as there's nothing to do. And that helps us enormously, because sometimes you are mapping an area with a lot of forests, or it's a desert, or there's nothing to do over there. So then are people looking at images, and they really don't see anything, and that's a waste of time. And this is something you can do in some minutes left over at a bus stop or at a station, or when you're waiting for someone else, then you do that. And here you see people in Amsterdam in a 16-year-old building, and when you look at the ceiling of it, the room above this is an area where the famous Dutch painter Rembrandt made a lot of his paintings. So this is a really historic site to map. When you map something, you do it from a satellite image. But you can't see a lot of things just on a satellite image. You can't see what the function is of the buildings. You can't see names. So, and you make, of course, also a lot of mistakes, because often the images are not very good and not very sharp. So you think it is, but it's something else. You think it's a house, but it's just a pile of stones or something like that. So you really need people to go into the field and update and adjust the maps and fill in a lot of other data. And here you see people from Red Cross, and we help them and train them to do this work. And then the map gets really much worse than it has when you only mapped at a Mapathon or something like that. And here you see people from Red Cross in Malawi. You see there are 2 cameras in front of the car. This is a really nice road, but here you see the same car on the not so good road. And we are taking pictures like you see in Street View, for example, on Google Maps. But Google is not going into this area, but there are not very much customers of Google here. So you walk slowly through on the road like this, and you take the pictures, and you have sort of Street View pictures, and you can watch them also when you are back at the office or at home and see what you have seen during this ride in the car. When you have the map data, and that's also what's happening now in Nepal, then you can do much more with this data. You can combine it with all open data, for example, provided by OCHA, United Nations, etc., and you can work it out and have some more information on basis of the map combined with other things. And we do that, as you see here, to reduce the risk of disasters, help the people, make them stronger to do what is necessary. Here you see something from the Netherlands on. We mapped a big part of Malawi in the last months, and one of the guys who were in the big white car you saw in one of the former pictures, made this map on the basis of what we did on mapping. So now we know where the roads are and where the people live, and we calculated the travel time to the hospital. And then you see in some areas the travel time is, well, about 6 hours, which is a little bit long when you are really in trouble. And that helps Red Cross to decide how to extend the hospital network and officers you need for that. Another map making the risk assessment, which areas are most prone to problems than others, and so we can help them and try to build up more resilience in these areas. We also use it for, as you see here, when there's a disaster or there's something coming on, like here a typhoon in the Philippines, we see the path of the typhoon, we hear where it comes from, and then we calculate and we make a map of which areas are most severely damages, probably the most severe damages, and we can do that immediately, combining the meteorological data of the typhoon with data we have in the area of type of buildings there are, landslides which are there, possible there, type of the relief. We combine a lot of things. It's not 100% sure what you predict, but the big advantage is that these pictures, they are available at the moment the typhoon is going over this island. You don't have to wait for people going into the area, make some reports on where the most damages are, and come back 1, 2, 3 days later, and then you know where you have to go to. But now you can immediately see which is much needed for help. This is Nepal, where we did more or less the same. Of the earthquake 2 years ago, combining in it the data of OpenStreetMap and other data, can we predict where the most severe damage will be? It's not perfect. We know there are a lot of mistakes, but we say, okay, this is what we predict. We took the data of 2 years ago, of now, and we know also where the most damages were, and we compare that and trying to improve our algorithms to do this. That's all done by people at Red Cross in The Hague. We have a group of some 25 people there, mainly students, working on it, writing a thesis, all kinds of other things they are doing there, volunteers also. And I think this is very important also for Red Cross, but also for other help organizations like Doctors Without Frontiers to have these type of data. This is more in detail, this area around Kathmandu. And this is the prediction of the floodings, and we use it also in Nepal. This is the prediction of for a fortnight ago. The picture in the middle, down on the second row, that's a week ago. No, less ago. It's of the 11th of August, and you see that the prediction in the 20th of August, a lot of water has already been disappeared. However, there are still areas very much underwater. This is the prediction in Bangladesh, valid for the 29th of August, so that's 2 days ago. And you see how far the floodings are now, and you can expect that during time the water is going further down until the coastline. But you see a very, very large area of Bangladesh is underwater. Sometimes it's just 10 or 30 centimeters, so that's not that bad maybe. But when it's more than 1 meter or 2 meters high, then you are in big trouble, I think. Here you see a picture of what's happening there. And these are the type of areas, especially this one, of what we are going to map this morning. You see the small houses, flat area, and between the houses, well, you can't see anything of a road here. But in this type of areas we are going to map now. This is also part of Bangladesh. We did this in the beginning of this week and end of last week. And you see more or less a sharp border what we have mapped and what we did not have mapped yet. Only the area quite near the river. That was important to do. And you see the big differences on the right-hand side and the area we did. And you see also some strange things. And that's when people are mapping for the first time, and you give them instructions and they look at the map, but you can quite good see sudden differences between roads. Some say, well, this is an important road, but neighbor says, who's working on another part of the area, that I do think it's just a path, you can't go there by car. Okay, then you have connections which you don't expect, or two roads quite near each other. We have to improve that, and that's the reason we are mapping now, everybody does it, and for that, the next step is a second pair of eyes who are watching over the whole area and helping to improve all these mistakes and wrong tags you give to a certain object. This is also an example, exactly the same as you just saw in the presentation in Nepal. This is an area on the left-hand side before we were mapping, and on the right-hand side after a lot of work done only by volunteers. This is in Africa, in the state of Benin. And this is what we're going to do. I'm now going to instruct you more or less about the mapping operations you have to do. And the first thing, and I just let you show now some slides, and then I go on and let you see it how I do it. You open a task manager, and I made a few tasks. You see the 2973 now. It's in Malawi. It's an older one I made a month ago, I think. And in the task manager, you see all kinds of tasks which has to be done. We are now going to map task 3440, and so we are now a month later. And you choose that one. What's important is that you log into OpenStreetMap. You do that on the upper right corner. You see there my name, Koos Kleinders, but there you can log in because you are drawing immediately into OpenStreetMap. You get a satellite image. Sometimes there are already some data on it, but you draw a line for the road and you draw some lines for buildings, and at a certain moment you say upload to OpenStreetMap, and then it's uploaded and it's there. And other people can see this, well, after a few, that has to be done, of course, but shortly afterwards, everybody can do that. But this is the tasking manager. You got a handout by mail where the details are, but logging in at task.hotawesome.org. Hot Awesome is the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and OSM is, again, OpenStreetMap, and that's a group of people who are organizing this and planning maps and the work field around. This is the area we're going to map today, 3440, and you see here all kind of all small tiles which has been partly done and partly not. This is a situation, well, I think it's 2 days ago. We did now a bit more. But when you zoom in, you see this. And you see all kind of small tiles. And when the tile is completely white, there's nothing been done yet. Or it's not, maybe there's something done, but it's not finished. So there has to work to be done there. So you can choose that. When it's yellow, then it's finished. Someone says, okay, I've seen everything, all the roads, all houses, what should be done, that's there. It's okay, yellow is finished. But when you see white